Okay. Can you hear me? Aloha, everyone.
Hello.
Aloha.
Aloha.
There's some echoing.
An echo. Sorry. Hold on. Charles, I have an echo. Oh, okay. How's this now? Okay. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Nice to see you, or at least kind of see you. Okay, we have a really full agenda, and thank you everyone who's going to talk with us today about Alzheimer's and dementia and Silver Alert, all these really great programs. So we're going to do that, and then we'll go into some of the updates on our legislation, and then any announcements. So I'm gonna turn this over to Caroline and Tani. Where are you? Oh, there's Caroline. Okay. So do you want to start us off on all the Alzheimer's programs, what EOA is doing, and
Right.
move on from there?
Yes.
Thank you so much. May I have the ability to screen share, please?
Okay, Charles.
We're still hearing some echo.
Go ahead.
Echoing, Charles.
You can go ahead.
Well, as Tani's bringing up the presentation, Senator, thank you so much for letting us present today on what EOA, along with Alzheimer's and everyone's doing around Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. Tani, next slide, please. So we're going to just share with you today a little bit of statistics, what we're doing around the dementia, the ADRD campaign. We're going to talk about the Dementia Initiative and the Public Awareness Action Team. And then Dr. Fujikami is going to talk about wandering. And then we have our guest speakers, which thank you so much for sharing your personal experiences, and then getting into the different bills that are related to aging, Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. We wanted to start off making sure everyone understands that dementia is like an overarching umbrella term that's used to describe a collection of brain diseases. And the one that we all know, we hear about, right, is Alzheimer's disease. So there is Alzheimer's disease. There's also vascular dementia, frontal temporal dementia, Lewy body dementia, and then other related dementias. And we're going to make sure that everyone gets this slide presentation, but just wanted to share with you the different types of dementias, and then the prevalence. As you can see, Alzheimer's is 60 to 70% of most cases. Vascular is 10 to 20%. The frontal temporal is 10%. The Lewy body is 5%, and then the other dementias are 5%. Next slide, please. So we also wanted to share some of the statistics. We know that by 2025, 35,000 people will be living with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. However, this is the reported cases. We know that there's a lot that go undiagnosed. So we know that this is kind of a low ball figure, that there's more out there. And that's part of the reason, huge reason, why we need to have a public awareness campaign to raise awareness, to have early detection around Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. And it's also going to increase by almost 21%, or it has increased by 21% since 2020. 41% of those with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia are females. The other 31% of age 85 and older are males. So that's a statistic to keep in mind. And also 31% of the caregivers in Hawaii are caring for someone living with dementia. And so again, around, some of the legislation around education is important, because we need to be able to prepare our caregivers for what they are going to be dealing with when dealing with their loved ones with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. And since I have a head cold, I'm going to hand it over to Tawny, who's going to talk to you more around the strategic plan and then into the actual awareness campaign and some of the work that we've done around that. But thank you so much, Tawny.
No, thank you, Caroline. She's a trooper. She still made it a point to be here with us today. And mahalo for setting the table on what dementia is and the current statistics in our state. On your screen, you see the cover of our Hawaii 2035 State Strategic Plan on Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, which is an accumulation of our community stakeholder voices over multiple years in the planning phase. Many of you are here today. Thank you so much for your support and continued partnership in this work. In the plan, there are 5 different domains of strategies, and one of them is focused on public awareness and education, which relates to what we're talking about today. The goals and strategies that relate to the campaign are here. They're focused on utilizing conventional and creative channels to disseminate relevant ADRD messaging, as well as developing public service announcements about brain health and ADRD. On the bottom right of your screen is a QR code that you can scan to read more in detail on the plan. We want to mahalo nui loa to the Hawaii State Legislature for passing Act 257, which established the funds for an ADRD public health campaign. So much support over the last legislative session, and we know that that momentum will continue as we talk about the bills that everyone is advocating for and relates to the Silver Alert program and dementia training later on in the presentation today. So thank you so much. We have been researching different health campaigns, and we've been blessed to work with others in the state who have experience with this type of communications and procurement. I'm very new to this process, so it's been a steep learning curve, but an enjoyable one this year. We've come to this strategy for the campaign. We're hoping to do a 4-month multimedia campaign that will have statewide reach. We don't want to be Oahu-centric, but we hope that this message will reach all of our families, friends, and community members on the neighbor islands as well. We're hoping to do market research, so we have an informed approach to the campaign, that the campaign will be delivered across multiple different medias, whether it's television, radio, digital, print, or display. We'd also like to do campaign evaluation so that we can see how effective it was and plan for future efforts upon that evaluation. And then we were also doing rebranding. So in meeting with different media partners, we were advised that we need to rebrand and have an updated kind of centralized website of resources to send people to. Once they see the campaign materials or content, where are we sending them to get more information? So we're working on that in process to kind of set that foundation. And we're so grateful to work with a graphic design professor and their students who's creating a new logo for Hawaii Dementia Initiative, which is our coalition of multi-sector stakeholders from across the state who are working to move the needle on this moving forward. And we're grateful for all of our partners who have been doing this with us. On screen, we have the thumbnails for a few of the public service announcements that have been created, and we're grateful to Olelo Community Media who helped us to develop these and also to shorten them to that 30-second time spot so that it could be sent to commercial media agencies for broadcast. And I'm going to share some data at the end of this about the impressions that these PSAs are currently getting. But before we do that, I'll play a couple of them. I'm trying to see. I'm going to stop screen sharing and then start again to make sure that you can hear the sound. Thank you for your patience.
Dementia is not a part of normal aging. It is caused by diseases of the brain. The signs and symptoms of dementia are memory loss that disrupts daily life, challenges with planning or solving problems, confusion with time or place, poor judgment, and changes in mood and personality. If you or a loved one are worried about memory loss, please talk to your doctor.
So that was one, and then I'm going to play another.
I tried making my famous lao lao recipe, but jammed up all the steps. Ugh, no can. I've made this recipe for many years. What's wrong with me? This is not normal.
Know where Alzheimer's hides.
Such powerful messaging to reach people in the community, encourage them to reach out for help, to learn more, and to get support and services. So huge shout out to Alzheimer's Association for that amazing content. I'm going to fast forward us a little bit to the media impressions that these PSAs are getting currently. So working with Hawaii News Now, the campaign is reaching 74% of the state. In February, it reached 795,000 Hawaii households. And then working with Spectrum, the PSAs were broadcasted on 24 TV networks, reached 7,575 impressions or different eyes that have seen it. And then it also has online a 75% completion rate, which is higher than the usual benchmark. And on the map on screen are the different areas across Hawaii that the campaign is touching right now. But we understand, that this is just a start and we are excited to expand. And all are welcome to join us in this effort. So if you're interested in joining an action team and collaborating in this work with us, you can scan the QR code on the right to sign up for an action team, one of the teams listed on the screen. Or, if you're not ready to join a team yet, but just want to learn more, on the left is a QR code for the online interest form. So we're so grateful for all of the wonderful stakeholders and community members that are partnering with us in this work, because we can't do it alone and it'll take all of us. And with that, I am pleased to pass it over to Dr. Gina Fujikami.
Hi, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Tani. I'm Gina Fujikami. I'm Division Chief of Geriatrics at the Queens Medical Center, and I'm also a board member of the Alzheimer's Association Aloha chapter. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about wandering. So wandering, what is it? So it's getting lost or just not knowing where one is in the community. Then you heard about the statistics about how prevalent dementia is in our community. Well, 6 of 10 people with Alzheimer's wander at least once in their lifetime. And as you can imagine, wandering is very stressful, not only for the person with dementia, but actually more so for the caregivers and families who can't find their loved one. And it can be very dangerous, as you'll probably hear later on in the hour today. Okay, next slide, please. So who is at risk to wander? So not everyone with dementia will wander, but definitely those with more advanced dementia have higher chances of wandering. But basically everyone with dementia is at risk. I've had patients where they think they're still working in Kauai, but they're here living with their daughter on Oahu. And so they think they're in Lehue and they get lost every time they leave the house. So they don't recognize where they're living right now. Like the person I mentioned, a loved one with dementia might think that they're still going to work. Oftentimes people with dementia sort of live in the past. The past is more real to them than the current situation. So some of them may still think, oh, they need to catch the bus to go to work, when really they've been long retired. And wandering is very dangerous, as over half the people who wander and are not found within the first day oftentimes are lost to injury or to death. Next slide, please. So what are some clues that wandering may happen in a patient with dementia? So again, looking for verbal cues. Are they saying, oh, I need to go to work? Are they very restless and walking around the house not knowing exactly what to do? Are they going for their usual half-hour walk in the neighborhood, but they're starting to come back maybe an hour later? Are they still driving and oftentimes they don't come back at their normal time? They're coming back later. Maybe they're getting lost. Speaking of getting lost, maybe someone might not even know how to remember how to get to their own bathroom in their house. Becoming lost in familiar situations, going to their typical grocery store, they may not know and forget where it is anymore. And becoming more anxious in crowded areas. And we find this a lot in patients with dementia, and that can lead to more confusion and a vicious cycle. Next slide. So what to do if someone with dementia is trying to wander away? Well, you don't want to create, more anxiety and be hysterical or be very anxious or yell at them. Of course, unless they're in imminent danger, then yes, do what you need to do. But you need to take a deep breath. The patient with dementia is living in what I call their own reality. They think they're in their time zone, in their situation. And so any kind of jarring information or telling them, oh, that's not true, can be very distressful to the one with dementia. So you have to strategize and figure out, where is this patient with dementia? Why are they wandering? Are they trying to go home? Are they trying to go to work? Are they trying to find their husband or spouse or wife? Maybe that has been long since deceased and they've forgotten. And then, using that information, try to, maybe approach the patient with dementia and try to, tell them everything's okay, and maybe try to what we call redirect them, change the subject. Hey, say, it's not time to go to work. Let's go get a cup of coffee first. So trying to redirect them without challenging what they're experiencing can be very helpful in these situations. And also music can also be very soothing also to a loved one with dementia. Next slide, please. So again, it is detective work because again, a loved one with dementia is oftentimes not able to tell you how they're feeling or what they're trying to do or what they're experiencing. So again, clues to look for in a patient who is confused and might not know where they are is, again, are they looking for a loved one, a family member? Are they not recognizing where they are because the room is very dark? Are they bored? They have nothing to do, so they get very restless and get antsy and want to leave, go holo holo somewhere. And this has happened to me, but oftentimes, maybe they go to a different room to get something and then you forget what you're doing, what you're supposed to do when you get there. But that can also happen more frequently in a patient with dementia. Even if they're told, stay right here, I'm just going to go to the next aisle and get some sugar and then I'll be right back. A person with dementia may forget that within a matter of seconds. So, you have to be aware of that as well. Again, any signs of that, a patient with dementia is becoming more living in the past, again, thinking they're still living in their childhood home, their parents are still alive, they're still working. Any clues to that, you need to be very aware of the possible risk of wandering. And again, just trying to do a lot of detective work to figure out what are they experiencing. Next slide, please. So if you are worried, you have these indicators of someone who may be at risk for wandering, what are things that you can do? Well, the person needs supervision. You can't really oftentimes leave them alone. So you need someone to be with them 24/7 or have some sort of supervised setting for them. If we want to try to keep a routine for these people with dementia, we want to try to keep familiar things around them, like pictures of family members, have a clock visible, have a calendar visible. A lot of my families put Post-it notes all over the place to remind people with dementia on what's happening next or where they are. Trying again to create a routine, create a structure. So much like children do well in a structured environment, they wake up at a certain time, go eat lunch at a certain time, go to bed at a certain time. Oftentimes people with dementia do really well in that sort of supervised, structured setting. So trying again to have meal times together with them at the same time, have structured activities during the day. So a loved one with dementia sort of knows what to expect. So there's not much room for confusion and anxiety. And again, music is really, really wonderful in people with dementia. And then if someone has incontinence, trying to take them to the same bathroom on a scheduled cycle every hour, 2 hours can also be helpful too. Next slide, please. So you also want to consider a safety plan before something happens to the person and they wander, get lost. So, first responders, as we'll talk more about later, but are very key, important. So once you know that your loved one with dementia is lost, you want to make sure you have a recent updated photo of them. maybe their updated weight, their heights, what they look like, descriptions, any details on their regular routine. You want to have all of that sort of readily available in case you need to give that information to the first responders and even distribute it maybe into your neighborhood. And then keep also, your nearest emergency responders' telephone numbers readily available too, because time is of the essence when a loved one with dementia goes wandering. Next slide, please. What are some things? So these are some things I recommend to my family members who are taking care of their loved one with dementia. So oftentimes, putting alarms on the front door can signal people that, oh, someone's leaving the house, what's happening. Having cameras, video cameras in and outside the house. Covering doors with camouflaging it, in essence, putting a curtain so a loved one with dementia won't necessarily try to leave. Night lights, so the room is nice and bright during the day, so that can help lessen confusion. Again, coming back to Post-it notes and labeling things around the house to help people know where and where to get things. Also, fencing the yard and locking the gate can also help sort of contain a loved one with dementia to decrease the risk of wandering. Next slide, please. And so technology tools, I love Apple AirTags. It's not the greatest, but it's $25. And if you have an iPhone, there's also the Tile for Androids. I have families that will slip it in the pocket, in a purse, in the shoe lip of a loved one with dementia. And that can somewhat help track someone if they do leave the house and go wandering. Also important is having a medical alert bracelet with the person with dementia's name, the emergency contact information, and listing that they do have dementia can also be very helpful. I've never used Alexa together, but this is also another way that families can help use as a reminder to patients with dementia that, oh, they need to take their medications. Oh, it's almost dinner time. That can be helpful too. And like I mentioned, having video cameras in and outside the house for surveillance is helpful. Next slide. So let's talk about driving. So some patients with dementia in the milder stages may or may not be able to still drive and have the capacity to drive. But driving, when we think about wandering, we think about walking on your own two legs. Well, people sometimes can still drive with dementia, and that can be another way that they can wander and get lost, which increases your radius of where to try to find them if they do get lost. So when you know someone who has dementia and they're still driving, it's really key to be aware of, are they still safe to drive? Not only are they safe to drive, but are they safe? We have to protect others in the community as well. So you want to make sure a loved one with dementia can still see okay, can still kind of plan ahead and map their routes. Are they easily distracted, or can they stay focused? Do they get anxious and flustered when they start driving and lose confidence? Those are signs where you might need to have a talk with their doctor about maybe coming up with a plan to stop driving in the immediate future. Next slide. So some strategies. I tell family members, go ahead and be the backseat driver. Go take a ride along with the person with dementia and make sure that they are driving their normal route safely. You want to be open, of course, discuss your concerns with people with dementia, but it can be difficult because they often lack the insight into their memory issues and may become defensive. I think it's important to talk with the person's primary care doctor about your concerns if you do have concerns about someone driving and safety. You can oftentimes refer them to the DMV for a driving test or certain rehab, occupational therapy for driving tests to make sure that they are safe. The problem is that you need the person's consent to do some of those driving tests, which can be difficult to get. And if all else fails, hide the keys, disable the car. If really safety, if the person really shouldn't be driving, but they're adamant about driving, you have to resort to some of these measures. Next slide. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate you having me here today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fujikami. That was fantastic. And also, EOA, for setting the stage, the context for today's presentation. Up next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Joe Burr as well as Ms. Rael Rasmussen. It's a real treat to have them take time out of their schedules and join us today to share their personal connection to wandering as well as the experiences that Ms. Rasmussen has in searching for individuals. So that being said, Mr. Burr, are you available?
Yes, Ron, I'm here.
Okay, take it away.
All right, aloha, and want to thank you all for allowing me to share my family's story regarding my brother, Bill Burr, and unfortunately his untimely death that can only be attributed to his losing the battle with Alzheimer and dementia. My brother was a very healthy 79-year-old military veteran. He was residing in Miliani at the time after having served honorably for over 20 years in the military. During his time in the military, it's important to note that he had one of the most difficult and one of the most mental specialties in the military, that being the role of a forward combat controller. But on the morning of October the 2nd of last year, I received the telephone call that no one with a family member impacted by Alzheimer and dementia ever wants to receive. My brother had wandered from home for a destination unknown. With me living on the mainland, I waited about 48 hours for the telephone call informing me that my brother had, with or without assistance, returned home. However, that call did not come. With that, my son and I boarded a plane out of Ohio, where I reside, and we immediately headed to Oahu to assist my niece, who at the time was my brother's caregiver, in a search of the island for my brother. We searched from the North Shore down to Waikiki, from Barber's Point over to the east coast of the island, searching all of the known spots that were familiar to my brother from his time living on the island. All of this was to no avail. During this search, we utilized a lot of resources, friends and family, military veterans. The Boy Scouts of America were enlisted. The Civil Air Patrol was enlisted. We even reached out as far as to the Texas EquiSearch organization, which is an international search and rescue organization based out of Texas, but they were willing to help us all the way to Oahu. During my time on the island, I was contacted by several media outlets. However, during that time while speaking with the media, I was never able to directly speak with any HPD personnel that were specifically assigned to my brother's case for updates on the search for Bill. Also, among those contacting me during my time on the island were local television, a staff member of NPR that did a story on wandering. And after my departure, other TV stations have contacted me for follow-up. With my brother being a veteran, we scoured all of the military locations we could access, leaving a trail of flyers, posters with post and base security. And as stated, on a voluntary basis, members of the military became very involved in the search for my brother. Members of the military specialty that he was involved with contacted me directly and volunteered their time and energy in the search for one of their own. Again, this was to no avail. It's interesting to note, immediately prior to my brother's wandering, and this was his first episode of wandering, I had 2 telephone calls with him. One was what I would consider to be a very healthy, very normal call, where we discussed childhood, we discussed visiting each other, we discussed our families, very stable call. The second call, a week later, unfortunately, Alzheimer and dementia reared their ugly head. After the call, I had to send funeral notices of my mother and my sister's funeral to my brother because he did not recall their deaths. He actually apologized to me for not attending their funeral services, although in fact he did attend both services. Unfortunately, this was my last conversation with my brother. While on Oahu, an angel by the name of Rael Rasmussen and her trusty sidekick, Maggie, did reach out and assisted greatly in the search for my brother, giving us a degree of hope. Maggie picked up Bill's scent in the area where he was last observed, and for multiple days, they were able to track Bill's direction to the point where the scent was lost. 7 weeks later, on Thanksgiving evening, the eve before Thanksgiving, I'm sorry, the Honolulu coroner's office contacted my niece and stated that human remains had been found in an area less than 10 miles from my brother's home. Identification in the pocket of the victim and clothing he was wearing clearly identified this as my brother, but it took a lengthy analysis and a procedure by the coroner's office to firmly identify this as being my brother. As a side note, there's apparently no notice of closure from HPD regarding Bill's remains being discovered, because since the discovery of his remains, I've had several media inquiries regarding the current status of his disappearance. And that's telling me there's no closed loop within the system on these individuals that wander. Finally, in January of this year, we were able to lay my brother's remains to rest on a very blustery and bitterly cold day in January. My brother's remains were returned to his native Ohio for a service with a well-deserved military honor. Though it was only 32 degrees outside, I could only laugh during the service, remembering that Bill and I had a conversation once that he told me during that conversation, the only way I could get him back to Ohio in January would be for his funeral. And I just thought that was very pathetic. So again, mahalo for the opportunity to share my family's story. Pardon me for the emotion, but I pray that sooner than later in Hawaii, a silver alert system is put in place to help our Kupuna return home to their loved ones. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Burr, and also for being there at the multiple hearings through this legislative session and sharing your brother's story. I know it takes a lot of courage and strength, to share your story continuously. But please, thank you, and our condolences and thoughts are with you and your ohana.
And I thank you and your organization, Ron.
You're welcome. So up next, I would like to welcome Ms. Rael Rasmussen. She's been with us through this journey of the Silver Alert program or proposal in this legislative session. She volunteers her time with Oahu Search and Rescue, and also in a full-time capacity is a state sheriff. So Rael. I think you're muted, Rael.
How's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I do dogs, not technology, so I apologize. Thank you so much for allowing me to add on to my experience with the search for Bill, for Joe's brother. We just some background on it. We were able to reach out to him about 8 days after Bill went missing, which for a trailing dog, even a bloodhound, is significantly long in Hawaii's heat. There's a lot of science behind it. We now believe we lost his scent at a very large intersection. And looking at the maps in hindsight, this kind of stuff, you can look at it and go, okay, I see what probably happened. But when you're in the middle of it, his family, Joe was, I've never seen a family look for so much help in this kind of a situation. I've followed it for a while. The only real coverage that it has gotten up until this point is Crime Stoppers, which is great. Unfortunately, Crime Stoppers is just that. It's more on a criminal aspect. There's nothing criminal about going missing when you're over 18. So if there's no criminal aspect, there's very little manpower to devote to it. I'm not saying there aren't great people that would like to, but in their capacity in the law enforcement field, they just don't have the manpower. They don't have the programs set up to go out and hit the ground and search, because law enforcement is reactive and search is proactive. And I think that's what a lot of people, especially the public, get confused about. So in reaching out and searching, and it's on a listen, let's give it a shot. Let's see if we can just get a direction to travel so we can maybe find a better place to start looking or to continue looking for Bill, we were able to pick up scent and follow it for a few days. But in going through those neighborhoods that, like he said, it's actually less than about 5 miles from where he started walking from his home, was where he was last seen. And luckily somebody paid attention despite there being no silver alert system and remembered seeing him on their dash cam. That's the only reason we even had that information. So in following that and taking those flyers with all that information from Crime Stoppers and handing them out to people that were essentially in his neighborhood and in his backyard, of all different demographics, from young to retired, people who bring their dogs to the park on a daily basis, to people who just play sports, drive through it, work in the area. And the consensus was kind of the same, where after 8 days, nobody even really knew that someone was missing. The picture that they saw on the news had left their brain. And that's part of the reason that this kind of alert system is vital. We call them unknowing witnesses. And it's essentially when you see something within the first 4 hours, whether you're looking for it or not, your brain is still remembering it. It's still in it. So if somebody says, hey, did you see anybody in a red t-shirt matching this description walking in this direction or in this area, you're likely to remember. And the calls that will come in to say, hey, yeah, I think just tips, whether they're going to be lucrative or not, isn't the point. The point is to have things to follow up on. And then hopefully down the line, or what I try to do, I just reach out and be able to follow up on it now. But the silver alert is the first step in this. And it's, thank goodness, because it is so long overdue. Even while it's been in progress, there have been multiple wanderings. And Joe is 100% right. If you go on Crime Stoppers, there is no resolution. I check it. And unless somebody posts something on a website or stolen stuff, or the family reaches out, it just is in limbo. And so the public doesn't know. And that's almost more dangerous than having an overabundance of alerts go out, is people just disregarding it because, oh, well, I heard that guy was found. And there's no actual closure of that loop that Joe is talking about. There's no sharing of information between law enforcement, search and rescue, HFD, the public. And these are all people and all organizations that really need to work together, because just that simple act of sharing information and asking people to open their eyes is going to bring people home. I mean, it's not going to work 100% of the time, but it's at least going to give you a better chance 100% of the time. And we owe that to everyone in this community, because everyone is affected. If anybody followed the hearings, what I heard most was not, like I said, I check it. And what I heard in the community, just people in that hearing, that small sampling, was their experiences with dementia, their personal family experiences of wanderings and having to board up houses and taking keys away, and the pain in these families. And you look back and you go, wait a minute, the public never heard anything about that. How was this person missing for 24 to 48 hours? Luckily they came home. But when we depend upon luck as our first line of defense in something as serious as wandering, we're setting ourselves up for failure, and we're failing the people that are wandering. We're failing their families. So thank goodness that the silver alert is well on its way, because it is well overdue. And I'm so sorry that it is too late for some, and I'm hoping that it is in time for others. But Joe, I want to thank you and your family for being such a voice in this, because I can't imagine how difficult it was, just even during the search. When I told you what I found on a daily basis, knowing that, anything I said is going to spark hope, and knowing that the chances of being able to deliver were slim. And you and your family just kept pushing and kept looking in every way you could. And most families don't have the ability to do that. Most families don't realize they have to, because there's a lot of misinformation about what's actually being done and the services that are in place. Most people, we tell in Hawaii that there's no silver alert system, will look at you sideways because they expected it to have been in place for decades. So unless you're directly involved, most of the public still, I don't think, with everything in the news, even once this passes, I have a feeling if you tell people, oh, there's a silver alert, oh, we've never had that go off before. And it's the surprise is going to be that it was issued, not that it was passed. So I am honored that I was able to assist your family. I'm honored to assist anyone in the families that I've worked with since. And I'm hoping that one day you guys won't need people like me. But in the meantime, there are so many people that are willing to help. We just, as a community between organizations and the public, we all need to just start with the silver alert system and then find a way to close that loop. And I think the results are going to speak for themselves, and there's going to be nothing but positives that can come out of this. But thank you for letting me tell a little bit of my side of that. And yeah.
Thank you, Ralph, for sharing. Definitely appreciate firsthand accounts. And this is one of many stories. So that being said, thank you for being with us through the process. Thanks everyone for bearing with us as we went through our slides. I do have a couple more to share with respect to policy, what's before us in the legislature as it relates to wandering. So next slide, please, Tanya. Thank you. So Senate Bill 2305 and its companion House Bill 1774 is the silver alert proposal. So basically the ask here is to establish a program within statute, really codifying the requirement and the need for a silver alert program here in Hawaii. Initially, silver alerts were targeted or I guess defined or narrowed in scope to kupunas with cognitive impairments. Now, in discussing with other agencies in states that have silver alerts in place, and in our research, we have found that has since evolved to be inclusive of those with developmental disabilities. Hence our partnership early on with the Hawaii State Council on Developmental Disabilities. I see Daintry on the call, so hi, Daintry. So that was the initial proposal we put forth in the legislature this year. As Dr. Fujikami had mentioned, 6 in 10 people with dementia will wander. Likely, if they're found, likely they'll wander off again. So super prevalent. So that being said, the status of the silver alert proposal is that Senate Bill 2305. This bill was introduced by Senator Brandon Elefante, many co-sponsors as well. That bill had just made it out of the House of Representatives on Wednesday and on its way to conference committee. So we look forward to the continued support. Thank you I see many organizations and supporters, partners on this call, Catholic Charities, AARP, Hawaii Family Caregiver Coalition, many organizations on this call, EOA. So thank you for your continuous support. We've garnered support from many agencies and community organizations, from labor to government agencies. So mahalo for your support. Next slide, please. Senate Bill 2552 and its companion House Bill 1773. These are the bills specific to law enforcement dementia training. So we had initially proposed standalone bills really requiring of law enforcement officers to really equip them to have the essential foundational elements of recognizing the signs of dementia in the public, in the community, how to communicate, interact with individuals who have dementia. And then lastly, to the extent of recognizing signs of neglect and abuse, so they can be referred to the proper agencies or support networks. Those two measures, unfortunately, had died. However, there's a little note towards the bottom left of this slide. There are two measures specific to crisis services and crisis intervention, Senate Bill 3139 and Senate Bill 2345. Those measures are still alive. And actually, dementia training was placed into these bills. So specifically, it ensures that crisis intervention officers have training on recognized Alzheimer's and dementia disease in the community and our public. So very happy to see those go forward. So thank you to the legislature, our supporters, for ensuring movement of these bills. Next slide, please. And that brings us to the conclusion of our presentation. Really appreciate the opportunity to share, Senator Moriwaki and Representative Chun. And we're available for any questions. We have a 24/7 helpline. Feel free to call us anytime, 800-272-3900 for any of your Alzheimer's dementia-related concerns. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ron, and thank you for all your presenters. I'm just going to open it up for any questions. If anyone has any, can you put your question in chat or raise your hand? I don't, let me see what's in chat. No, but again, thank you for Mr. Burr and for Dr. Fujikami and all of the work that you've been doing, Ron, and your program. So I don't see any questions, so we will move on. The next portion. Thank you again, everybody, and Caroline, for you and Tommy as well for all your work on the Alzheimer's and dementia plan. So we have other bills other than what Ron has mentioned going forward. Number of the long-term care planning bills, which is a subset of the Kupuna Caucus bills, are all going forward. So let me screen share with you, Charles, the bills that we have. Some of these bills are not going forward, but they are put into the budget. So Hawaii Healthy Aging Partnership, Caroline, you might want to chime in. That is in the budget. Caroline, do you know how much got put into the budget?
I believe it, Senator, it was 400,000. That was a housekeeping measure from our budget. We just needed to move it from one line item to healthy aging. So if that's, and my understanding, it's still there, it would be 400,000.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
And the fall prevention campaign, that is also, we just passed it out of WHAM, and it's, so these that are just passed out of WHAM today, I think, or yesterday, they're going to go to the floor vote in the Senate, and then they'll be crossing over to the House, back to the House. So these are all House bills that passed the House, so they're pretty much in good shape to be passed this session. The personal needs allowance, that is going back to the House, so that is also in good shape. The family caregiver tax credit, I don't know, has somebody been following that? Because that was combined, Senator San Buenaventura combined that. And so I'm not sure, I think there's a part of it that's there for the caregiver tax credit, but it might be for care and not for paid care, but not for the volunteer caregiver. Caroline, have you been following that?
Senator, I have, but I can't recall the last decision on that. I think you're right. It was combined with that other bill.
Mm-hmm. And I think it covers tax credit, but I might
but I thought it was tax credits for the caregivers.
It's not, it's for caregivers, but I think it's paid caregiving. I don't think it's for, just voluntary.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't have the.
Okay, but follow that along, folks. It's HB 1769. And the paid family leave, unfortunately, did not survive. Charles, can you move that screen share up? Okay. So we have the comprehensive long-term care master plan that has survived. So that is HB 2224. It just passed WHAM today, I think. So it's going to go back to the House. So it's in good shape. So is SB 2285, which is
the SHPTA bill, yeah.
The bill, that's yours, Jack.
Yes,
It-
yeah.
It's in good shape.
And, you know, I'm hopeful that's good because I think that um, Chair Dela Cruz seemed to really be enthusiastic about it originally. This came out of those conversations, so I'm hoping that he'll help make it happen. There was a little confusion in the finance committee about it in terms of, is there other parallel things like the Office of Wellness, and of course it's a very different bill than that. But sometimes things get confused in those when there's so many bills. But it did pass, made it
Great.
through. We're very grateful, and hopefully, when it gets back to the Senate side, we'll keep it going.
Good. And I think part of that also the EOA long-term care master plan, there's some coordination there, and whether it gets incorporated might be some discussion that might come out in conference. But I think
Okay.
because both Caroline and you have been working really closely together, I think we
Yes.
can find some way in which both survive and move forward, because I'm really looking forward to working with you guys on the long-term care plan.
We'll make sure that happens.
So 3383, that one was the training, the assessment for no wait, what is this? The statewide assessment of needs. Yeah, the workforce trading one that didn't survive, but I'm thinking that training and workforce development would be under the long-term care plan. So that would be covered anyway, in terms of a component of the plan. So I'm not so concerned about that because it doesn't stand on its own, in the bill. HB 1827, for the workforce development programs. This is the one that Hawaii Healthcare Association has been working on, and that was wavering for a while, but it passed yesterday, I believe, in WAM. So that program will be training CNAs to LPNs. It will also be looking at putting training for high school students so that we can pull them into the arena earlier, and also for some CIP funding to stand up a couple of classrooms, revise the classrooms, renovate the classrooms so that we would have clinics in some of the high schools so they can learn hands-on.
We came in strong support of that as well.
So that has passed WAM, and that will be going back to the House. And that is a majority package bill. So I'm hopeful that will sail through. HB 2216 is the residential care home, increasing the fee reimbursement. So that is in good shape. The home community-based services, while it's not in the bill, is in the executive budget. So it is in the budget. So I think that is in good shape too. That's all I have, unless somebody else has other. Oh, here's our almost finished. Thanks to Anel and the Kalani High School students. We're going to fill that out some more with all of your help, and as we go forward with long-term care planning. So that's all I have in terms of bills, unless or budget items that I've been following. Corey, you have anything on the House side that you've seen that we missed?
No, I think you covered it. Yeah, I think it was that last one that came to finance. The two Senate bills that we just passed out this week. So should be moving to conference. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in good shape. Okay, well, that takes teamwork. So thank you, everybody. Really, everyone working together is really great. It really helps to move some of these programs. We're not always on the radar, so having all of you working together and supporting all these programs across the different spectrum. So it really is great. Looking forward to continuing to see this all the way through, because after this, when it passes the legislature, you need to also advocate with the executive, with the governor. So that would be the final step to make it law. So any comments? Anybody want to add anything more to what we've discussed here, legislation or any other programs? I don't see any hands up. Okay, then any announcements? Anything going on? Some of the programs. Rick, you always have something.
Oh, okay, I'll do something. You're tired of hearing from me. So actually, oops, I'm sorry. Get my camera on here. Just completed the certification training for the Kupuna Caucus program over at Mediation Center of the Pacific. So that was a program that actually was going on before COVID that's been refined. And Tracy and her team have picked like 10 of us folks to do these family conference mediation. For neighbor islands, your mediation centers continue to do mediation, and we're offering that you can Zoom to do the family conference mediation, which is something different. And I would put out, I was emailing with Tracy, that's the executive director, Wilton, earlier. She's willing to come here and present, and also at Kabia, but she might be a presenter that's worthwhile to have, just to talk about the program. You may know about the program from before, but we've modified it a little bit, and it's up and running and ready to go. So, Senator, I can send you more information, or I don't know if I have, but I'll send you more information that you can share with folks. Okay? That's it for me.
What is the program called? What is
Oh, I'm sorry. So they're calling it Kupuna Caucus. So what it is say some siblings are having some issues with mom or dad who are Kupuna, and they just not agreeing, and mom and dad aren't agreeing, and everyone's not on the same page. They come in and we help them sort it out. Pretty intensive family conference. Typical conference lasts about 3 hours. We can actually do more than one conference. We don't always resolve it in the first conference. So it's
sounds good.
if you've had any experience with mediation, it's a pretty powerful tool. And Mediation Center has been around since 1979, so pretty proven. Well, I'll add one piece. This Kupuna Caucus program, this version that we're rolling out, is a pilot study. We're researching how it works, and then we'll expand it from there, is my understanding. I've just joined the team, bringing my mental health, kind of get back into some direct service. So pretty exciting. And actually, the team of folks that were in the certification, oh my gosh, they were impressive. So it's a cool program. So if you want more information, let me know. And like I said, Senator, I'll send you some information on it also.
Yeah, if it's going on, then we could ask Tracy if she wants to or can come to one of our next Kupuna Caucus meetings.
Yeah, you just let me know when, and I'll invite her and see if she can join us. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you. And with that said, our next meeting is May 3rd. So if anybody has another program, and again, thank you to the EOA team and Ron for really good coverage of Alzheimer's dementia. It really was very helpful. So we have programs like that you want to share with the caucus. That would be very helpful to hear from you, so we can add it for the May program as well.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share, Senator Moriwaki.
Well, thank you very much. It was really good. I learned a lot. Yeah. So I think that brings us to a close, unless anybody else has any more announcements. Caroline, you have anything? EOA doing? Daintree, anything?
No,
Okay.
I just wanted to thank Ron so much and the legislators. Our collaboration this year was just fantastic. Our Day at the Capitol event, and then our the Silver Alert, including us, and that was something that has been so important to us. And just the way that we could work together and have that voice, that common voice, has just made so much. And Caroline folks, and you guys have just been wonderful to work with. And thank you so much, because we're part of the population and our folks age as well. And to have that voice to support everyone has just been fantastic. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, and you did a great job, you and getting together with Alzheimer's. I thought it was Alzheimer's, so I was going to wear my purple shirt, but then it was orange. So thank you for a good job there.
Thank you.
Okay, so next meeting, May 3rd, same time. And if you have anything to add, Corey, you want to add anything, Rip Chun?
No, just thanks for running the meeting. Sorry I was a little late. We took a little longer today.
Oh, you always are so long in the house.
You know, yeah. We like to debate, I guess.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend.